I know that many of you coming to something like this means giving up a weekend. You know, you could be doing other things, right? You could be hanging out with your friends, watching Netflix, scrolling on Instagram, which you're probably doing this, doing other things that can compete for your attention every single day, right? So the fact that you guys are all here means that somewhere in your heart, you're searching for something more, something that you've been missing in your lives. If everything was perfect, and if everything gave you what you needed, you wouldn't be here with us. Right? This is something, we get something more here amongst our brothers and sisters who are Orthodox in the church. So, the truth is that none of us are alone in this endeavor, this kind of searching for more. So the question is, of course, and as you all saw on the posters and on the advertisements, you know, the main generation the main question that our generation is asking is, you know, where is God and how do I hear Him? I hear this a lot from not only young people, but I hear it increasingly more from even adults, middle-aged people. I hear it from elderly people now in the church, which is crazy when you think about it, right? Because we always think about, you know, our grandparents having the wisdom. I even hear older people in their 60s and 70s saying, I don't know where God is. I feel very much alone in this world. He seems to be absent in my life, right? So I think that our generation right now, your generation even more so than mine, I'm kind of middle-aged right now, we're facing this challenge not because God is like missing somewhere, but rather, you know, that we're missing, that we're somewhere else. Or maybe, you know, we're kind of checked out to a certain degree, and we don't know how to listen to Him. He's always there. So we live in a world where almost every second of our lives are filled with something. You know, notifications, music, videos, messages, opinions, pressure, expectations, right? The phone buzzes, the screens light up. There's always another voice telling us what to think, how to look, how to act, and what we should care about. And slowly, without even realizing it, the noise becomes normal, right? Like this kind of lifestyle. For some of you who are really, really young, the youngest here, the 13-year-olds, I believe it starts, right? You know, you don't know a world without a cell phone. You don't know a world without Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's just part of what you need even from babies, right? I'm old. I'm old enough. When I was in high school, no cell phones. Like no cell phones. Forget about like smartphones.
I use iPad.
There were no cell phones. No, there was no iPhone. I'm old. Like I'm 40, almost 45. I was born in 81. I graduated high school at like 99. I had a pager. You know what a pager is? Seen movies? Doctors have pagers. I wasn't a doctor, right? But I mean, there were no cell phones yet, and you know, the few that were there, like were the big brick ones, you know, the ones you see in the like Save Us Down, shows like that. So, you know, it was a different world for us, but for you, you don't know anything else, right? I always make fun of my kids. I have 3 kids, twins, 14-year-old twins, George, another George, and Katerina. And they're 14, and then I have another son, Angelo, who's almost 11. And I make fun of them because, like, you know, they'll see like a payphone if you can even find one, and they don't know how to work it. They don't know what it is. So like, what is this thing that you pick up, and these buttons that you actually push? Like, there's no concept of like or putting coins in it, right? So, you know, it's a different world altogether. I come from the parish of Prophet Elias, and it's interesting that, you know, when we talk about, you know, hearing God. If you look in the story of Prophet Elias, there is this beautiful story about him, you know, kind of trying to hear God's voice, right? So in the Old Testament, you know, he was waiting for God to reveal Himself at one point in his life, and you know, as the story goes, you know, there's a powerful wind. Have you guys heard this story before? Where God was not in the wind, it says, and there was an earthquake, and God was not in the earthquake, and there was a fire, and God was not in the fire, right? But God was not any of those things. And then finally, after all those noises passed, Scripture tells us that God comes as a still, small voice, as a whisper. That's how He spoke to Elijah. After all these things passed, it was this really, really tiny whisper. And he had to really strain and focus to hear God. And we'll talk about that as well. So that's how God often works, right? He doesn't work through shouting. He doesn't work through chaos. He doesn't work through a lot of the things that we're used to in the world. He usually speaks through quiet, and especially inner quiet, which we'll talk about. So the saints of the church understood this deeply. That's why in the Orthodox tradition, we have something called hesychasm. Does anyone know what hesychasm means? It's a Greek word. Ησυχασμός, or ησυχία, the root word. Anybody know? Sorry? I can't even hear you. You're mumbling. No, it's not deep prayer. Deep prayer comes after the hesychasm. Stillness or silence. Both. Isikia means silence, quiet, right? So hesychasm is a practice, one could even say a movement, especially amongst the monastics, the monks and nuns in the Orthodox Church, where they practice stillness. They practice quieting the mind, the soul, the heart, not just the physical surroundings. That's part of it, but I mean, it's quieting what's on the inside, right? Quieting our own voice so we can hear God's voice, because often we're drowning Him out. So hesychasm is it's very, very important, and it's something that we'll be focusing on the next 24 hours of this time. So God is not silent. He's speaking all the time. He's speaking, and we'll talk about the different ways that He speaks to us through scriptures, through the liturgy, through the saints, through people around us, through quiet moments in our hearts. Right? Probably, usually not. It's not that God isn't speaking. It's that we are surrounded by too much noise to listen, as we say. And that this weekend it's about that. It's being. We called it unmuted when we were talking with the leadership, which is kind of funny because, in order to unmute our hearts and our souls, and really to unmute God, because it's kind of like we have an unmute button, right? We have to mute everything else. So it's kind of like a backwards thing, right? You have to mute all the other distractions so we can unmute the thing that we actually want to listen to, right? So the idea is simple, right? For the next couple of days, you guys are all going to be experiencing and going through something different. We're going to turn down the world so we can turn God up. And we're going to talk about why it feels like God is silent. We're going to explore how God actually speaks to us. We're going to learn some very practical ways to quiet our hearts through prayer, especially through the Jesus prayer, which is fundamental, and in which Christians have used this for many, many centuries. And maybe, most importantly, we're going to discover that hearing God is not something mystical that only monks on Mount Athos or monasteries can do. It's something that we can all do on a daily basis. So God is not distant from us. He is not hiding from you, not hiding from me, and He's not ignoring us. That's the big thing. You may feel that He's ignoring us, but He is not ignoring us at all. He is closer than we realize. So the question simply is, are we willing to become quiet enough to hear Him? There's a really beautiful story of St. Paisios. You guys know who St. Paisios is? He's a very, very modern saint. A lot of people have heard him. Some of you might have seen that new show that was made. It's a really popular show that was made in Greece, so it's with subtitles in Greek. It's like a phenomenal 2-season series about his life, which is really, really good. If you have a chance, I'll send you the link. It's really good. You can watch it for free on the internet. It's not pirated, I'm just saying. There's a story about St. Paisios where he was speaking to a group of young people who come to see him, right? And they would tell him, they would say, we try to pray, but our minds are everywhere. We think about school, we think about friends, we think about problems, things that we saw during the day. We just can't focus. And this is back in the 80s. So there were no cell phones yet. Because St. Paisios died in the 90s. And St. Paisios, he listened to them, and then he told them very simply. He says, imagine you are trying to tune an old radio. Have you guys ever used an old radio? Probably not. Right? But I don't know, my kids have never seen an old radio, right? But the old radios, right? It's like a little box, and there's a little button you turn on, and then there's a wheel that you turn, and you got to turn it to the channel. That's how the old ones work, right? And you have to tune it. You have to go really, really slow, almost like those locks you have, at school on your lockers. You have to tune it to catch the signal, right? So St. Paisios, because he was a radio operator when he was in the army, so he used this analogy a lot, right? He would say that, we're like an old radio, right? And there's a lot of interference and static in our lives. And we're trying to tune ourselves to hear the signal coming. The signal's always being broadcasted, but a lot of times there's always interference. And this is the way he used the example, right? So he goes, slowly, you got to adjust the dial. The signal becomes clearer and clearer as you adjust the dial more carefully. But it takes time, and you have to become really, really good at it. Okay? So the heart, he says, is like the radio. And God is always broadcasting, and the soul must learn to tune itself to its frequency. Right? And I always like to say that, if we're the radio, this is the antenna. You guys know what this is, right? Yeah? This is the antenna. We're going to learn how to use this tomorrow. Okay? We're going to learn how to pray with this. Might be a little hard, but we're going to try. If some of you already know how to do it, that's wonderful. If you have never done it before, that's great. There's always a first time for everything, right? But this is the antenna that we use. This is the best antenna that you can use to help tune yourself into the Word of God, into what He's trying to tell us, right? How to still ourselves, right? So my hope for this weekend is not that you walk away with a bunch of information, just like the stuff that I'm telling you. My hope is that something inside you becomes just a little bit quieter, a little bit clearer, a little bit more open to God. Because even if one of you leaves this retreat having learned how to recognize God's voice in your life, then this weekend will have been worth it, and George can take all the credit. So, again, I'm really excited to be here. I know it's very late, it's already 10 o'clock at night, but I mean, it's really something that is very important to me. As I've gone through the years, I've been a priest 18 years, from a deacon almost 20 years, and I didn't have to learn, even as a priest, how to use the antenna, how to tweak my prayer life to be able to cancel the noise, because even we priests, and I'm sure Abuna can testify to this, we hear a lot of noise. And even though it's church noise, it's still noise. A lot of problems, a lot of things coming at us, and even like priests, a lot of priests suffer from this problem because they're always bombarded, and if they don't know how to quiet themselves during the storm and to be able to tune into God, even though we're actually at the altar and we're doing prayers, and you would think that we would be the holiest. No, we're human beings just like everybody else, and we got our problems just like everybody else, and we need to learn how to quiet everything to be able to commune with God and to be able to center ourselves. So we need this as much as all of you do, but if we do it together and we learn the skill set, which can be learned, we can have a lot of success in our lives. We can learn how not to have anxieties and being upset about things and being worried and all this kind of stuff that most of our generation are doing today. So I'm really, really excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm not going to say much more. I don't know if there are any questions, initial questions for tonight, or if we have time for that, but that's all I got for tonight. God bless all of you. Welcome.